Hello, everyone. I believe that we're about to start with our webinar assignment, and you may be wondering, what are you supposed to do and what is expected out of you? All right. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through in terms of some of the expectation and what are you supposed to do while you're actually presenting later on in the class itself. Yeah. Okay, give me a second while I share my screen. Okay, webinar, all right, shares some similarities of an online forum, all right? However, the role of a webinar is to educate the person who's actually listening to your discussion, in which you have decided your topic, and unless I have highlighted your topic in red, that means you're good to go. Okay, so when you're actually doing your webinar, there are a few things that you have to bear in mind before you actually start with your session itself. It's a live session, which means all of you need to make sure that, during our class, throughout the weeks to come, you have a stable internet connection, all right, and all of you are ready, you're well dressed, you must have the privilege of turning on your camera. Okay, so there are a couple of things that you need to do, all right, during the presentation. There are a couple of things that you need to do after your presentation. Okay, so let me start with what is expected of you, before the presentation, all right? So you want to make sure that, hold on, yeah. Okay, I'm not sure why the cursor is not detecting. All right, hold on. Okay, so, all right, you have to make sure that, each of you know the role, all right? What role are you carrying before the session? For example, if you're doing online learning versus traditional learning, all right, you may have a moderator, and then, in your team, you probably have people like, maybe a lecturer, a student, all right, an IT officer, and someone probably from the ministry. All right, so understand your role well, and you have to carry out the role precisely during the assessment itself. And how are you going to be assessed? You're going to be assessed based on the content. How much of content input are you putting for the topic? And in terms of your presentation would cover, are you organized in your speeches, all right? And are you able to present yourself well and, use the language well too? Okay, and of course, the last part is language convention, where I will look at, how much of, translation are you using in your presentation. Of course, you cannot use translation, but let's say, your language mechanics not properly presented, all right, and you are having a bit of difficulty in trying to use the sentence correctly, and you're trying to do a translation and so on, right? And then grammar, the choice of word, all of this will be taken into account in language conventions, all right? And most importantly, you got to make sure that your internet is stable during your presentation, all right? So let's say if you come from a place where your internet is scarce, you got to give a heads up before the assessment day, all right? Do not go missing during the assessment, please, all right? Also, one of your teammates have to make sure that you have a tool for recording, because during the presentation, you will launch the Google Meet or WebEx or Zoom, any medium which you are comfortable of. And during the webinar, you are supposed to record, all right? So because Zoom allows I think about 15 or 20 minutes of recording, isn't it? So you can use any tool which you are comfortable of. So what happens is that on that day, all right, let's say your class starts today. So all of us will launch, all of us will actually go into Google Meet, all right? And I will let you know what are the teams we're going to present on that day. And that particular team is supposed to provide us a link for their online webinar session, and all of us will actually go in there. So it's up to them whether they want to live stream the session or you just want to make it for your class members. That's completely up to you. So but what you have to make sure is that when you're presenting, you want to make sure that you are recording your session. Okay, and during the session, again, don't forget to record the session. So this will be the evidence, all right, of submission later on. All right. So being the moderator, right? Moderator is someone who's going to like manage the discussion and to make sure that, each of your panel have got the chance to speak. So you're supposed to introduce and summarize the ideas spoken by each of the panel. So you should not limit your role to just what you think of this, oh, I agree to that. But instead, you have to extend your discussion to, you can agree or disagree. And at the same time, you provide a little bit of extension to the idea discussed by panel itself. Even though this is a group work, you are still going to be assessed individually. All right. Okay, and also being the moderator, you want to make sure that each of the panel is given equal opportunity to speak their mind. All right, so you can also ask them to engage between one another. All right, that means what they're saying, they can agree and disagree to one another. So you can also, play your role in there by having an intellectual discussion among the panels. Okay, so all of the presenters, you cannot read from your notes. I believe that all of you may have a little bit of notes for you to refer. Referring to notes is fine, but reading is completely prohibited. You are supposed to speak based on what you understand. All right, so the moderator, okay, you can probe them by saying, what do you think of this, right? How do you go about it, right? And even the panel itself, right? You can even ask questions with one another. It does not mean that the role is going to be limited to the moderator, okay? But you can also engage with one another by asking questions to some of your panelists over there. All right. Okay. And I believe that because it's going to be online, so to aid, let's say you're doing about online learning and you want to show a poster about, maybe you did a survey among university students and you found out that how many of them prefer online learning and how many of them prefer traditional learning. So you can only use one visual aid. It can be a poster or brochure, or a PowerPoint slide, anything, but just one. Okay, all right, so let's say if you have a topic of yours, all right, so that's one. All right, you can have another one more, your data. All right, so but then let's say you don't have a slide for your topic, then you can just have one to show your data. All right, so that's what you will do during your discussion. And after that, so your team will be given about 15 to 20 minutes to present. The maximum I can give is about 20 minutes, all right? So after your presentation, there will be a Q&A session. So Q&A session, we can actually have, maybe some of your friends from the class can actually ask you questions related to the topic, or it can even be me, all right? So anyone from the team can actually answer. Whoever who's willing to answer, of course, your credit score goes high. Okay, and once you have completed, you are supposed, once the session ends, all right, you're supposed to upload your recording in a drive, that I'll be sharing in Google Classroom later. Okay, so these are the things you're supposed to bear in mind before you actually start, while you're doing your presentation and after you have completed. So I'm also attaching the rubric in case if you want to have a look at it in a more detailed way. All right, so thank you very much. All the best for your webinar. So another possible question to let's see if you want to repeat your webinar. Well, that's possible, but only after all the groups have completed. All right. Okay, so thank you very much. I'll see you in the class later this week.